A reading from the first letter of Paul to the Corinthians. Now about food sacrificed to idols. We know that we all possess knowledge, but knowledge puffs up, while love builds up. Those who think they know something do not yet know as they ought to know. But whoever loves God is known by God. So then, about eating food sacrificed to idols. We know that an idol is nothing at all in the world, and that there is no God but one. For even if there are so-called gods, whether in heaven or on earth, as indeed there are many gods and many lords, yet for us there is but one God, the Father, from whom all things came and for whom we live. And there is but one Lord, Jesus Christ. Through him all things came, and through him we live. But not everyone possesses this knowledge. Some people are still so accustomed to idols that when they eat sacrificial food, they think of it as having been sacrificed to a god. And since their conscience is weak, it is defiled. But food does not bring us near to God. We are no worse if we do not eat, and no better if we do. Be careful, however, that the exercise of your rights does not become a stumbling block to the weak. For if someone with a weak conscience sees you, with all your knowledge, eating in an idol's temple, won't that person be emboldened to eat what is sacrificed to idols? So this weak brother or sister for whom Christ died is destroyed by your knowledge. When you sin against them in this way and wound their weak conscience, you sin against Christ. Therefore, if what I eat causes my brother or sister to fall into sin, I will never eat meat again, so that I will not cause them to fall. The word of the Lord.
Well, good morning. It is good to see you. This is a major feast day on our calendar, not the liturgical calendar, but on the sports calendar. Super Bowl Sunday. All right. So, how many Seahawks fans have we? All right. And how many Patriots fans? Very good. Very good. So when we do communion, Seahawks over on this side, Patriots over on this side. How many people I don't really care about the football game, but it's just the commercials that you're going to be watching? There you go. And how many other people don't care about any of that? They just want the food. Yeah. That's probably my section. It is fun. It's fun to be able to get together and have fun together and be able to be with friends and neighbors and family and do something like that out of the ordinary. And I was thinking too about the whole issue of being able to talk with each other, being able to have conversations together as you get together for a football game or for whatever it is, whether it's in your house or a friend's house or something like that, gathered together. I was thinking about that in relationship. Last night we had a wonderful dinner here, 300 people who gathered over in the Pittenger Center, and just hearing the murmur of the conversation that was in the room. It was warm, it was inviting, it was just a really wonderful time. And this opportunity to talk together. And oftentimes when we talk about not much. We talk about the weather, we talk about things that are in the news, details, things like that. But it's a way of touching base with each other. And then every once in a while, we peel it back a little bit deeper and find something that's safe, but maybe a little challenging to be able to talk about, something that discloses a little bit more of who we are. This issue of conversation is really an important one for us. And I've been having a conversation recently, unexpectedly, with a new friend. This person's name is Tom. And he has been interacting with me because he has gotten online and had seen some of the sermons that are posted for us here at St. Mary's. So I don't know if you know, but there's a camera that's right up there, and that camera records whoever the preacher is for any particular Sunday. And so then on that Sunday, that week after the Sunday, that sermon gets posted up on our webpage, and then it goes on YouTube. And so you can watch any sermon. So if there's a Sunday you're sick and home and you can't come, and you can always go there. I know it's only because you're sick that you wouldn't come on a Sunday. Or if you happen to be on vacation, or snowbirds, people who are seasonal folks. If you come down for a season and then you go back home, you can always check and find out what the sermon is about, or kind of stay in touch with St. Mary's through our website and the sermons that are there. So there is an opportunity then for people who see a sermon or anything on YouTube to be able to post comments about it. Some of those comments are not always the most helpful kinds of comments. But others of them are genuine interaction, a desire to kind of have a response. And so Tom is one of those folks who listened to a sermon some weeks ago and who responded to it. And so since that time, Tom and I have been kind of responding back and forth. He is a person who, if you were to kind of characterize him, or if he was to characterize himself, and there's a link to his own website, you can see kind of some of the things that he's interested in. He probably leans more towards being an atheist than certainly a Christian of any kind. And so he's kind of asking challenging kinds of questions from outside the circle of faith commitment that we have. And so he recently posted another question about the Christian faith. And so what I thought I would do, rather than just simply having our conversation, there's something about being able to post it online, with written words that are there, but to be able to actually have a conversation with Tom this morning. So Tom, at some point, will know that this sermon is happening, and so I'm going to just use this as an opportunity to have a conversation with Tom as well as us. So I'm saying on behalf of St. Mary's, Tom, it's great to see you, although I can't really see you. But it's great to have you here at St. Mary's, and I'm grateful for the opportunity that you've afforded in our being able to have a conversation and to meet really from a very long distance. The UK is I think where Tom is at, so to be able to have a conversation across the ocean and be able to kind of talk about things, and in particular the Christian faith. So thank you for the opportunity for that. And so the particular posting that Tom made a couple weeks ago was this one. Or this posting was this week. And he said, he's asking this question about, and the nature is of freedom of the will. And he says, so God gave man free will, quote unquote. That's like putting a live hand grenade into a playpen of 3-year-old toddlers and asking them not to pull the pin. That's a pretty pointed question, isn't it? It is. Let me just read it one more time to make sure you get it. Free will, he says, that's like putting a live hand grenade into a playpen of 3-year-old toddlers and asking them not to pull the pin. So that reflects a little bit that this whole notion of freedom of the will is a dangerous thing. And so how can a loving God give free will when, in fact, part of the possibility is that freedom could be used to self-destruct, to destroy one's own self or to hurt one's own self. And that Tom, is particularly pointed in our own day. I couldn't help but think of the situation of the world as it's in, and as we see the proliferation of nuclear weapons around. So the numbers of countries that have access to nuclear weapons, North Korea now, and this conversation that's going on with Iran, and whether Iran will eventually get a nuclear weapon. It's a scary thing, isn't it? And so there is this danger that free will actually does bring about the destruction of all that we hold precious. And yet it's curious because we come at this discussion about free will at the very time when our culture is seeming to say that there is no such thing as free will, that we are the product of our own environment. And so determinism in some kind of way, we're determined economically, we're determined by our genetics, we're determined by social pressures around us, we're determined by the economy and economic pressures. So this whole notion of determinism that allows us then to believe ourselves to be the product of whatever those causes and factors bring us to be. And so then it leads us very much to the place of asking the question, are we really responsible for the things that we do? Is there a moral responsibility on our part, or is it just that we're responding to the stimuli of the forces around us. Perhaps you've heard the little ditty about someone who is talking about Sigmund Freud and this question of freedom and the intersection of freedom with responsibility. So are we responsible? And so Anna Russell was the author of this little poem. She entitled it Jolly Old Sigmund Freud. It goes like this. I went to my psychiatrist to be psychoanalyzed, to find out why I killed the cat and blacked my husband's eyes. He laid me on a downy couch to see what he could find. So this is what he dredged up from my subconscious mind. When I was 1, my mommy hid my dolly in a trunk, and so it follows naturally that I am always drunk. When I was 2, I saw my father kiss the maid one day, and that is why I suffer now from kleptomania. At 3, I had the feeling of ambivalence towards my brothers, and so it follows naturally I poisoned all my lovers. But I am happy now I've learned the lesson this has taught, that everything that I do that's wrong is someone else's fault. I think the point for Anna Russell here is that we know in our bones, don't we? We know in our bones that for life to make sense, for us to be able to continue to carry on a rational approach to the world and relationships around us, we have to have a sense of the moral responsibility that comes with freedom. The opportunity to be able to know that there's a dignity that comes with us being a human being, and part of the gift that God has given to us is the opportunity to be able to make choices. And those choices come weighted with the freedom that God has given to us. And that freedom is not without cost. It can be a very dangerous kind of freedom. It can lead to self-destruction. But this sense that it also not only could lead negatively to self-destruction, it can, and it is in fact the only way that it can lead to the building up of relationships, being able to do things that are positive, that are nurturing, that are loving, that are caring, that allow us to be a community together that builds up one another in order to be able to be more than we could have been had others not been willing to lay down their freedoms and to serve us in some way. In the epistle lesson that was read just a few minutes ago, St. Paul deals with this strange issue about meat that is sacrificed to idols. It's odd. Anybody at your Super Bowl meal this afternoon going to offer meat that is sacrificed to idols? I mean, in general, we don't think about that as something that's an issue here, but during Paul's time, it was an issue. Most of the meat that was bought in the marketplace was meat that was sacrificed to idols. And in this small church that was in the city of Corinth, a very kind of swanky place, affluent in its way, these people, kind of this Christian community came together, and there was this issue about eating meat that had been sacrificed to idols. For some in the community, they felt like there's no such thing as these pagan gods, Zeus and Saturn and Jupiter. Who are they? They're nobody. And so I can eat the meat that is sacrificed to them. I don't care. There's nobody who's out there. So there's freedom that comes in being able to eat that meat. For others, however, there had been perhaps a deep experience of the pagan world and what it meant to sacrifice to those gods, and feeling very much a presence in their own lives. And so for them, when they saw their brothers and sisters eating meat that had been sacrificed to idols, it was appalling. It was divisive. It was showing that they didn't care either for them or for the God that they were supposed to be worshiping together. And so Paul is taking on this issue that seems kind of buried in history for us, and he's drawing out principles about how it is that we in the Christian community deal with one another when there are things that can be very deep within us that could divide us. And he says this. So these are principles that are effective in our life together. So he says in the lesson in your leaflet, he says, now about food sacrificed to idols, we know that we all possess knowledge. But knowledge puffs up, while love builds up. Those who think they know something do not yet know as they ought to know. This temptation, oftentimes, that comes to us, that we can know something, that we can feel pretty good about ourselves, knowing something, and if somebody doesn't know that thing, then we somehow can use that information against them or be over them, and somehow not respect who they are. St. Paul is saying, knowledge puffs up our ego. Love builds up. So my focus then is not just to somehow impart knowledge to you because I think I'm smarter than you are, but to build up the relationship that I have with you. And so later on, he drives it home even more when he says in verse 9, he says, be careful, however, that the exercise of your rights does not become a stumbling block to the weak. Well, I tell you, we live in the United States of America, don't we? And there is nothing that we are more proud of than our rights. You know, we have a right to this, we have a right to that, we have rights that are all over the place, and we like to express our rights. Nobody has the ability to tell us we can't say it or do something that we feel like we have the ability to do. St. Paul is taking us deeper, and he's saying, you have freedom, you have freedom, you have rights. But just because you have rights doesn't mean that there's an obligation for you to express those rights, to use those rights, especially when it's to the detriment of one of your brothers or sisters. And so don't use your knowledge to tear down or to offend. Use your knowledge to build up. Surrender your freedom. This tremendous gift that God gives to us, to be surrendered so that we can build one another up. And in that building up, to be able to foster an environment of love and caring. It is only where there's this gift of freedom that I can then set aside my freedom and build love. Where freedom is not possible, love is not possible. And yet it's scary, isn't it? It is scary. So when we have a love relationship, especially it becomes an intense relationship, as we're looking at intense relationships among very close friends or in a marriage or people who are dating, and all of a sudden I have freedom and you have freedom, and you may not use your freedom in order to build me up. Maybe you might not even want to stay with me. You may want to leave me. And all of a sudden there's this terror that happens in me because you're free. And you could do something that I don't want you to do. And so out of my fear, there's a desire to kind of clamp down and control you and to keep you doing the thing that I want you to do. But it destroys love, doesn't it? It just destroys the possibility of love if we don't honor the freedom in the other person. You remember the old nursery rhyme. Peter Pumpkin Eater had a wife and couldn't keep her. He put her in a pumpkin shell, and there he kept her very well. Remember that? That's romantic, isn't it? Put that on your Valentine's card. There is this thing about us that wants us to contain, to control, to monopolize, to take away the freedom of the people who are around us. And yet, it kills love. This opportunity to be able, as it's demonstrated in the God who is the God of the Christian faith and in the presence of Christ, to be able to surrender that freedom. To be able to know the freedom is the freedom to be in relationship or the freedom to be able to walk away. And unless you have that freedom to do either one, there is no basis for a relationship. There is nothing to be able to allow that love to be able to continue to blossom and to flourish. There's somebody who suggested an updated version of Peter. He says, Peter Pumpkin Eater had a wife and wished to keep her. Treated her with fair respect. She stayed with him and hugged his neck. That's better. That's better. It sounds more like Valentine's Day. This opportunity to be able to surrender ourselves and the people that we love in order to be able to form a relationship that can continue to grow and blossom and develop. But that's only a picture of, as you continue to intensify the relationship, it's only a picture of this tremendous love that God has for us, that is expressed in Christ. This opportunity to be able to surrender himself in the person of Christ, to give Christ to us, to allow us to be able to have this relationship with him and to ask the question, do we want to have a relationship with him or do we not? And it's completely our choice, the opportunity to be able to say yes or to be able to say no, to walk away and to see how that works for us, or to be able to come close and to be able to enter into a conversation with this God of ours who's revealed himself in Christ, to be able to say, oh, so what does this look like? You know, how is it that you express your love for me? What questions do you have answers for me? How is it that we can explore this relationship? And in the appreciation of our freedom, to be able to know ultimately that the greatest freedom is laying down our freedom so that we might become truly free. Can I say that again? The greatest freedom is to be able to lay down our freedom so that we can become truly free. So that this God of great love for us invites us to be in relationship with him. And as we surrender ourselves to him and come into relationship with him, he sets us free within the bonds of this relationship with him and gives us everything that we could possibly want, but not a self-destructive love, but a self-fulfilling love that brings us to the place of adoration and ultimately worship for this God who has made us and cares for us. So, Tom, that's my shot. It is, as I understand it, it is the perspective of the Christian faith on this place of freedom and freedom of the will. It's precarious, it's dangerous, but it gives life its meaning and its purpose. And so I look forward to being able to have continuing conversations with you, however you'd like to be able to do that. And I thank you for the opportunity to have conversations together and to involve all of us in that. So God bless, and thank you for the opportunity, everybody here at St. Mary's, to be part of it. Amen.